It was a quiet evening when Ayesha found herself at a crossroads, caught between two lives she never wanted. On one side, her traditional family, bound by expectations and cultural obligations, were pushing her into a marriage she wasn't ready for. On the other, a life of freedom, the kind she had always dreamed of, but one that seemed impossible to reach without losing everything. Ayesha was an ordinary woman with extraordinary dreams. She wanted to build a future on her own terms, free from the shackles of societal pressure. But her family had other plans. Her father had already arranged for her marriage to a wealthy man she barely knew. The idea of being married to someone she had never chosen, of living a life where her voice didn't matter, terrified her. It felt like a prison, and she wasn't sure if she could escape it. Desperation took hold of her, and in an impulsive moment, she made a decision that would change everything. Ayesha did something that no one saw coming. She ran away from her family and found herself marrying a man she had just met. He was a delivery boy, humble, poor, and seemingly without a future. She wasn't in love with him, not even close. But at that moment, her need for freedom was so overwhelming that it blinded her to anything else. She thought this would be her ticket out, a quick escape from the life that had been forced upon her. Little did she know, the man she married wasn't who he seemed. He was far more than just a delivery boy. His true identity was a secret, one that would unravel in ways Ayesha could never have imagined. And as the days passed, the tension between them grew. What seemed like an ordinary marriage to escape her family's control turned into a web of lies, deceit, and unexpected twists. Was this man truly just a delivery boy? Or was he someone far more powerful, someone with the ability to change the course of her life forever? The deeper Ayesha got into this whirlwind of a flash marriage, the more she realized she was playing a game with high stakes, one where she might not be able to control the outcome. Stay tuned to find out what happens next, as Ayesha's life takes a turn she could never have predicted. Will she discover the truth about her husband, or is she about to find herself trapped in a world even darker than the one she was trying to escape? The journey has only just begun, and trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. Ayesha's decision to marry the delivery boy, as impulsive as it was, initially brought a sense of relief. For a brief moment, she felt she had gained control over her own life. The wedding was simple, nothing extravagant. It was a rush, almost as if she were trying to outrun the life she was being forced into. In the eyes of her family, she was a runaway bride, choosing freedom over the comforts of wealth and tradition. But the reality of her choice began to settle in soon after. The man she had married, Zane, seemed quiet and humble. He worked long hours delivering packages across the city, earning a meager living, but there was something about him that she couldn't quite place. Ayesha had always been a keen observer, and despite his plain exterior, there was an aura around him that hinted at a deeper layer. His calm demeanor, the way he spoke with an air of quiet confidence, none of it made sense for someone in his position. And then there were the little things, like the way he never revealed much about his past. Every time Ayesha would ask about his family or his background, Zane would deflect the questions with a vague answer or a joke. She didn't press him, believing he was just a simple man trying to live a simple life. But as days turned into weeks, Ayesha began to notice strange patterns. Zane's delivery schedule was erratic, sometimes disappearing for hours without a word. And when he returned, there was always an air of mystery surrounding him. He'd come back from these deliveries with a different aura, more composed, almost as though he had stepped out of a different world. She started hearing whispers from people in the neighborhood, talk of his unexpected wealth, of the businesses he owned, and how he was far more than just a delivery boy. Ayesha's curiosity started to bubble up, But she couldn't shake off the feeling of guilt that came with questioning the man she had married in such a hasty manner. The tension grew between them. Ayesha, torn between the life she had escaped and the life she had chosen, started feeling isolated. Zayn, for all his quietness, seemed content in his silence, but Ayesha couldn't ignore the growing suspicion in her heart. Was he hiding something? Was this man, whom she had married in desperation, leading a double life? One night, unable to hold it in any longer, Ayesha confronted him. "Who are you really, Zayn?" she asked, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and frustration. "I know you're not just a delivery boy. There's something more to you. Tell me the truth." Zayn looked at her with calm eyes, as if the question didn't surprise him. For a moment, there was silence, the weight of the room pressing down on them. Ayesha held her breath, waiting for him to respond. He sighed, as if the weight of the secret was too much to bear. "I'm not who you think I am," he said, his voice steady but filled with an unspoken regret. "But you knew that, didn't you? You felt it the moment you married me." Ayesha's heart raced. "Then who are you? Why didn't you tell me?" Zayn stood up, walking toward the window, his back to her. "I couldn't. Not yet. You weren't ready to hear it." He paused, as if weighing his next words carefully. "I am the son of a powerful businessman. My father's empire spans industries he wouldn't even know existed. But my life was never mine. It was always about the family name, the legacy. I walked away from all of it. The company, the riches, the expectations. I wanted something different, something real. And that's why I've been living this life." Ayesha's mind was reeling. The man she had married, the one she thought was just a delivery boy, was actually someone with unimaginable wealth and influence. Her eyes searched his face for any sign of deception, but all she found was sincerity. "But why marry me? Why do this?" she asked, her voice breaking. Zayn turned to face her, his expression softer now. "I didn't want to live in a world of arranged marriages, of expectations and pressure. I saw what you were going through. I knew you were running away from something, just as I was. So I offered you an escape, an illusion of freedom. I thought we could both find peace this way, in our own way. But the truth is, Ayesha, you didn't marry me just to escape your family. You were escaping something much bigger, the idea of being trapped in a life that wasn't yours. And I was trying to give you that, even if it meant hiding my true self." Ayesha's heart raced as the weight of his confession sank in. She had married a man who was more than she could ever imagine, and now she had to confront the consequences of that choice. What did this mean for her freedom? What would her family think when they discovered the truth? The air between them felt thick with unsaid words. Ayesha wanted to scream, to run away, but part of her was drawn to the man in front of her. He wasn't the villain she had once imagined. But the question remained. Was he truly the answer to her freedom, or had she just stepped into a world that was even more complicated than the one she had left behind? As Zayn turned to face her, his expression unreadable, Ayesha knew one thing for sure. Nothing would ever be the same again. The truth had been revealed, but with it came a storm of uncertainty. Was this the life she had been searching for, or had she just trapped herself in a web of secrets and lies? And the biggest question of all, what would she do now? Ayesha couldn't sleep that night. The weight of Zayn's revelations pressed heavily on her mind. She sat by the window, staring out into the quiet night, her thoughts a storm of confusion and doubt. She had wanted freedom, but now she was entangled in a life more complex than she could have ever imagined. Was Zayn's truth her freedom, or just another trap? The answer wasn't clear. The days that followed were tense. Ayesha kept her distance, unsure of how to process everything. Meanwhile, Zayn continued with his work, his demeanor unchanged. but there was an unspoken understanding between them now. They were two people who had collided by chance, both running from worlds that had controlled them. Yet despite the tension, Ayesha couldn't ignore the growing respect she felt for Zayn. He hadn't lied to manipulate her. He had done it to protect the life he had chosen to live. Then one evening, everything changed. Ayesha was walking home from the market when she noticed a black car parked near their small apartment. Two men, dressed in expensive suits, stood outside, their eyes scanning the street. A chill ran down her spine as she hurried past them. When she reached the apartment, Zayn was waiting for her. His face was serious, his usual calm replaced by urgency. "They found me," he said quietly, gesturing toward the window. "My family knows where I am." Ayesha's heart sank. "What does that mean? Are they here to take you back?" Zayn nodded. "They've come to convince me to return to the family business, to step back into the world I left behind. And they won't leave until I agree." For the first time, Ayesha saw fear in Zayn's eyes. It wasn't fear for himself, but for the life he had built, the simple, unpretentious life he had fought so hard to create. She realized then how much this life meant to him, how much he had sacrificed to escape his past. And now that past was threatening to pull him back. Ayesha surprised herself by stepping forward. "You don't have to go back," she said firmly. "This is your life now. You get to decide." Zayn looked at her, a flicker of hope crossing his face. But before he could respond, there was a knock at the door. The men from the car stood outside, their expressions unreadable. Zayn opened the door but didn't invite them in. They spoke in low voices, their words too quiet for Ayesha to hear, but she could see the tension in Zayn's posture. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Zayn closed the door and turned to Ayesha. "They're giving me an ultimatum," he said. "Return to the family business, or they'll cut me off completely. No inheritance, no ties, nothing." Ayesha felt a surge of anger. "Let them," she said. "You've built this life on your own. You don't need them." Zayn smiled faintly. "It's not that simple. If I walk away, they'll try to make my life difficult. They have the power to do it. But you're right. I don't need their money or their approval. I chose this life for a reason, and I'm not going back." That night, Zayn made his decision. He met with his family representatives and told them he was staying. The men left, their expressions grim, but Zayn didn't look back. Ayesha watched him with a mix of admiration and relief. For the first time, she saw the strength of his resolve, the courage it took to stand against his past. In the days that followed, life slowly returned to normal. The black car never reappeared, and Zayn continued his work as if nothing had happened. But for Ayesha, everything had changed. She had come to understand Zayn in a way she hadn't before. He wasn't just a man with a hidden past. He was someone who had fought for his freedom, just as she had. As the weeks turned into months, their relationship began to shift. What had started as a marriage of convenience became something deeper. Ayesha found herself drawn to Zayn's kindness, his quiet strength, and his unwavering determination to live life on his own terms. And Zayn, in turn, came to admire Ayesha's resilience and courage. They were two people who had found each other in the chaos of their lives, and together, they began to build something real. One evening, as they sat on the balcony watching the sunset, Zayn turned to Ayesha. "You know," he said, "when we got married, I thought I was giving you a way out. But I didn't realize you were giving me something too." Ayesha smiled. "And what's that?" "Hope," Zayn replied. "A chance to believe that I could have a life worth living, even after leaving everything behind." Ayesha looked at him, her heart full. For the first time in a long time, she felt at peace. The life they had built wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. And that was enough. In the end, Ayesha and Zane found what they had both been searching for, not just freedom, but a sense of belonging. Their journey had been messy and unpredictable, but it had brought them to a place where they could finally be themselves. And in that, they discovered a love that was worth everything they had endured.